Welcome to the next installment of BookmarkIt. This week, we're featuring Brett Lurie, author of the Endless Frontier series. If you haven't seen my review of The Hunter and the Knight, you should go check that out. Brett has written 7 books within this universe, with the most recent being Blood and Soul, which releases on August 29th. And that's the second in his Endless Frontier series here. If you want to order from his website, you can use code IFC20 and you can get 20% off all your orders. So be sure to take advantage of all those deals. With that in mind, and without further ado, Brett, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. It is an honor and a pleasure to be here.
So I wanted to dive right in just to get to know a little bit about your background, where you're coming from a fantasy perspective. And I think that comic books are really a great medium for people who might be intimidated by fantasy. So with Spawn being one of your favorite comic book series, what is it about comics that caught your interest? And are you reading anything currently?
Yeah, no, I caught on to anti-hero comics in the 90s as a kid. They got me real young. Like you said, with Spawn, Venom, The Punisher, just I fell on that wave so hard and I never really dropped off. Spider-Man, it continues to be not only a source of fiction inspiration, but just inspiration as, a fictional character as far as values to apply to life for me. And I think the thing about comic books that really gave me a good bit of influence as far as writing goes is it feels a lot less constrained in a way. Like in comic books, you're much more likely to find stories that play with and blend genres, and I really took that and crossed that style of world building into my literary writing.
Are you reading any good comic books lately, or was that something that just kind of got you started into this kind of genre?
Oh no, I still definitely like reading comics. My favorite series I've read in the past couple years has definitely been Department of Truth, which is a pretty big turnaround from, classic Marvel superheroes. But I'm not sure how familiar you are with that, but basically the concept of Department of Truth is that there is this government agency that controls the flow of information, not just to control the narrative, but to control reality, because the big conspiracy is that collective belief actually controls reality. So if enough people believe the Earth is flat, the Earth will become flat. So it's really thought-provoking, it's really well written, and the art just gets better as the series goes on. And I like cryptids like Mothman, so...
I've never been much of a fantasy or a comic book reader myself. Yeah. The first one I ever read was the one that got sent to me, and it was more of a fantasy style comic. I had a hard time with it because I like the immersive nature of a book, like rather than the more of the pictures. And I know that comic books can be immersive, but there's something about like just reading in depth and getting all that world building, letting my imagination do kind of more of the heavy lifting that just gives me a lot of satisfaction.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
It's always kind of fun to see authors, especially when they have a wide range of hobbies outside of reading and writing. So let's talk a little bit about a few of those that you have.
Yeah.
What was it about hockey that made you a fan of that sport rather than something like football or basketball?
Ooh, that's a good question. I come from a long line of hockey players in my family, family roots in Minnesota, and before that, Sweden. So,
okay.
Yeah. Just kind of runs in the family, paternally, especially. Older brother really got me into it, getting me with the rollerblades on and on the ice by the time I was 3 years old.
One of my wife's friends is a big hockey fan. Like, she works for a hockey team. And so I've only ever been to one hockey game, but it was one of the funnest experiences that I've been to. And I don't understand anything about hockey, so I'm going to be totally transparent about that. But it's just so much energy in the arena that, man, I was just screaming about things that I had no clue what was going on.
It kind of gets you, doesn't it?
it sucks you right in to the point where I'm like, I need to be a fan of this. Like, I need to get involved with this sport. With that said, do you think the Ducks have a chance of being any good this year, or
I don't know, man. They traded Trevor Zegras, so I have low hopes.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I always have hope, but yeah, we'll see. We got some young players that we're hoping will keep getting better, but our general manager is he's got an interesting idea of how a hockey team should function. It's very much a 1980s way of thinking about the game, but you never know.
Yeah, I'm in Utah, so I'm a Utah Jazz fan.
Yeah.
And man, sometimes it's hard to be a fan when you just don't understand what the front office is doing.
And frustrating. Absolutely.
It's like, yeah, it's a painful thing. So I'm expecting my team to come in dead last this year. So I have no high aspirations that way, which is almost good, because there's a certain point where, like, when they are competitive and then they lose, that's just way more heartbreaking.
Is it a good draft year, at least in the NBA?
Well, we were supposed to get the #1 draft because we were the last team.
Yeah.
But we fell all the way to 5. So yeah, it was kind of a bummer. And then the kid that we drafted ended up being like not happy about going to Utah.
Oh no, for a good feeling.
So yeah. We'll see how that turns out.
Yeah.
Another hobby that I noticed you had is that you also play the electric guitar. At any point, did aspirations of becoming a rock star outweigh being an author?
I'm going to be fully transparent about that. So, yeah, I definitely had motivations of being a professional musician in my late teens and early 20s. I got frustrated with not having full control over creative projects.
Okay.
That's why I stopped playing in bands. And I sometimes felt that the work ethic of those I was trying to accomplish this very difficult and competitive dream with, a lot of the times the work ethic of these other supposedly professional musicians was not at a professional level.
I see. Yes.
Yeah. So that kind of is what killed the music dream. Actually, I wouldn't say it killed it, because sometimes I do think like, oh, I should start another band. Like, I do get that itch every now and then. But what really kind of made me stop striving for that as much was just, you put your heart and soul into a project and it falls apart through means outside of your control. And it turned into writing, because I always loved writing. I wrote fan fiction when I was younger. All of my English teachers throughout middle school, high school, and then eventually in college, my professors would tell me that, like, oh, you're a very well-developed writer. Like, you clearly have a strong understanding of how to put words together, and if the case calls for it, tell a story. So that's always something I kept in the back of my mind. And then, between bands, I started developing different ideas for different stories, and eventually one of them took off, that eventually being called Endless Frontier.
Okay, so that kind of kicked off your passion for writing. What was kind of the first story in this universe that kind of like got onto the page, or what was your inspiration to kind of kick things off? Was it one of the folktales, or was it The Hunter in the Night?
The Hunter in the Night was the first story I wrote, in terms of like the first story I wrote in the universe that was published, but it didn't come together that cleanly, actually. It started with, in summer 2016, my niece and I were binge watching Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Okay.
That's actually how it started. And I kind of just this is when I had different story ideas kind of circling through my head. And I had the idea, oh, what if I wrote this like first contact story where a future version of an earthly people make contact with a old Western style alien civilization, or rather there's this debate about whether they should make contact. So I start developing this world, like, oh, what are these people like that these folks from Earth are going to meet? And oh, there's this one treasure hunting drifter character that they meet, and his name is Brelu Crane, believe it or not. And, yeah, those characters ended up being split apart. But yeah, and eventually, after a lot of world building for this first contact story, I'm looking at just everything I have written down in this Word document, tens of thousands of words, and I go, this world itself is a lot more interesting than the idea of Earth making contact with this world. So then I said, screw it. It's not a sci-fi first contact story. It is a fantasy story set on this secondary world. Earth has nothing to do with it, because who wants Earth? Earth is boring.
Yes, that's, you know what? That is something that I loved the most about your series. And I critique fantasy authors about this all the time, where I feel like fantasy is such an unlimited genre where you can do anything. And we are always writing about humans and humanity. And it just, and even if there's humans in it, that's fine. But it's always humans, dwarves, elves, always. Ever since Tolkien set the foundation for it, I feel like that's been the precedent. And so I loved getting a story where they have gills or they have different colored skin. Like, it was so interesting to me, and I haven't seen that done a lot. So I really like that about your stories.
Well, thank you. And like, it's funny because some people actually ask me that, whether, just out of curiosity or confusion, they'll be like, why are there no humans in your world? And I kind of go, why would there be? Well, it's this other, like, there's humanoids, that makes it only easier for the reader to kind of grasp and imagine, but just maybe makes them a little more relatable. But why would there be humans on a fantastical alien world? So that's kind of where I come from that. Like, the idea of putting humans on the world never really occurred to me.
It's just so much fun to explore things, especially as a fantasy writer. I would imagine that, like, that just allows you to do so much more with your world, because you get to just invent rather than being constrained by the limitations of humanity, I guess.
Yeah.
I noticed that you mentioned that horror is actually your favorite genre to consume.
Yeah.
So how does that influence your writing and perspective as you're crafting your stories?
In a lot of ways, I think mostly in just my style of prose. I keep my prose very simple, straightforward, and I try to, especially in action scenes, really keep building tension. Hold the tension, keep building it. I think you even mentioned this in your review. I try not to allow myself to get bogged down with paragraphs and paragraphs of description. That's definitely something I more learned from horror than fantasy. And also, I just really like spooky stuff. I like ancient tombs, and I like, creepy gargoyles and skulls. So aesthetically, just a gothic style definitely seeps into my writing in so many more ways than I intend, in ways than I intend as well.
I had a conversation about horror and versus fantasy, and that's one thing that I came to the conclusion of is I think that horror is an underutilized element for fantasy, because horror at its core is fantasy, because you have these supernatural things happening that oftentimes have rules to them, have structure to them. And so I would like to see that maybe a little bit more as well, talking about how I like seeing the different types of races and species. I also like seeing different kind of cross blends between genres. That might be something that I think becomes big in the next maybe decade, where it could have the same effect as like romantasy, where the blending of romance and fantasy just captured an entirely new audience. And I feel like it would do the same thing, where it's like, oh, you like horror? Read this horror fantasy style book.
That's been my favorite thing about the rise of romantasy, is how many new fantasy fans it's made.
Yep, absolutely.
And I know a lot of people, I mean, I don't write romantasy. It's not my style to write or read, but I definitely appreciate its place, and I appreciate how many new fantasy fans it's made. It's made fantasy cool.
Exactly. I'm the same way, where like, I'm not a big fan of reading romantasy just because I don't like romance in general.
Same.
But I can appreciate what it does for the genre, and I'm learning to like it a little bit more. Not really. I still don't like it, but I'm not holding it against.
But you're trying.
Books that I read. I'm like, you know what? We're going to just be objective about romance when we do reviews. So that's been my goal.
Some of my friends, my writer friends, and colleagues, if you will. They're romantasy authors, and I've read their stuff, and I can definitely, like, I know when it's well written and I understand its place. But in the end of the day, like, just give me a sword fight, man. Like,
Yes.
give me a sword fight, and I prefer camaraderie over romance personally. And if there's some romance sprinkled in, like, that's cool.
I'm the same way. Like, I
Yeah.
feel like we get a lot of typical. I mean, I just made a video about how much I dislike romance and
Right.
my issues with it. But it's because I just grew up on epic fantasies. So
Yeah.
I love the battles and the fight scenes and the training and the magic. So when it gets distracted, what I feel like it is with a subplot of romance, I'm like, get on with the story. Who cares?
I mean, Tolkien clearly felt the same way because he put the Aragorn and Arwen love story in the appendices of the Fellowship of the Ring. He's like, this doesn't even belong in the story. It happened, but put it in the back of the book.
That's something that I like about the duo that you've created between Sir Dresco and Costa Crane is just that I think they have so much contrast to each other.
Yeah.
And yet they complement each other so well. And in my original review, I likened it to something like a Holmes and Watson situation where, it's just like that type of a duo where you have someone who's competent and someone they are competent, but it's just in a different way.
Yeah.
But they just don't see each other on that level, yet they just work so well together. I love that about the duo that you've created with these characters. And with that said, if you were transported to the plains of Vanda, would you rather ride in an airship with Costa or ride on a Drugan with Sir Dresco?
Oh man, I think I would rather ride in an airship with Casta because although she'd be grouchy about it, at least she would competently be able to handle herself. Dresco on a Trugan, at least in the beginning of the story, really, he's lucky to have survived that. Let's just put it that way. So, yeah, no, that's a great question, though. I like that.
And another question on that same vein: if you could get cybernetics in this world, since a lot of people in your universe get enhancements, what enhancements would you get yourself, or would you be an anti-cybernetic person, more like on the Costa side of things?
What cybernetic would I get? That's crazy because as much as I've thought about the cybernetics, I don't know if I've ever thought about which ones I would get. Nothing Brelu has. That's a little too intense for me.
Yeah, that's a little invasive, I would say.
You know what? Maybe just like the reflex enhancers like Casta has. That just seems like it'd be really, really useful in a tight situation.
Okay, that's fair. I think that's a great answer. I was gonna say like I would get just one eye done, one advanced eye. And that's it. Like, I wouldn't want to do both because I still want to keep my regular vision. But I think that it would be cool to be able to see different things with my eye, like infrared or X-ray or different things like that. I think would come in handy. Plus, it would maybe improve my vision a little bit. But
it would almost be like a cyber monocle that way if it was on one eye.
Cyber monocle. I'm gonna use that moving forward. But if anyone asks me, I'm getting a cyber monocle someday. So
yeah, that's rad.
In your first book,
yeah,
we progressed from bounty hunter and treasure hunting to full-fledged magical discoveries.
Yeah.
And I haven't finished your second book, but I've started it, and I've noticed we've kind of been able to return to some of that treasure hunting a little bit.
Yeah.
So for your next book, Blood and Soul, what can we expect from these characters and the journeys that they're taking?
Ooh, higher stakes, darker tone, more personal, and more emotional weight, at least for me. We'll see if readers feel the same. So far with early arc readers, it's been consistent with this, but just character moments that hit you a little deeper than they did in the night. Yeah, a slower build, longer. It's a longer and slower build of tension, but one where, like I said, the stakes are higher. So when we do get to those tense moments as the story builds, it really, really feels like it's hitting you hard.
I like to hear that because I am willing to endure a slow burn style of book that has a more character driven narrative, and that has more of those payoffs to it. I really like that about your first book, where it, to me, seemed like it just went from kind of, I was having some struggles with like some of the pacing and just getting involved in it as much, because it's just such a different style than what I've ever had read to that point.
Yeah.
And by the end of it, I was just like cruising through the book because I loved the direction and the motivations of your characters.
You're not the first person to say that. A lot of people say they find trouble through the first 3-4 chapters really connecting with it, with the world, with the characters, but usually by the double-digit chapters, they're in.
And I would even say that that's common for this genre. Like when I tried to read Name of the Wind, it took me months to read and finish that book because I hated the beginning of that book so much. I almost couldn't finish it. Like I was stuck in the 200 to 300 page hell for like 4 months, where I just like would read 2 pages and I'm like, I can't do anymore. But I read it because everyone would say like, oh, this is one of the greatest, books and series. So I just like had to just grind through it.
Yeah.
And they were right. Like if you get past a certain point with a lot of books, it then becomes one of your favorites if you're willing to like just invest in the characters, trust the process, trust the author.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, for a while there, because some people would say like, oh, like, I struggle with the beginning. It doesn't really get, I thought like, oh, should I completely rewrite the beginning? Should I start it in a different spot? But then I would talk to people who had read the whole thing, and then they would say, no, don't change the beginning, because in hindsight, that was all very necessary. Like it's not as fun to read as the second and third act of the book, but it sets everything up so the second and third act work. So I trusted my trusty beta readers on that one.
Let me ask you this, because that brings up a good point. How do you deal with the feedback and criticisms that you get of your book? How does that impact your writing? How does that affect you as an author? I'm always curious how you're able to cope with that, how it influences future books. Like Robbie, for instance, he told me they're all written, so it doesn't matter what people say about them. But like, how does that work for you?
So it depends who the feedback is coming from. If it's, like I said, one of my beta readers, just 10 or so people who have, through the goodwill of their hearts, decided to read my sloppy second and third drafts to give me notes on. Like Violet is one of them. My partner in the interior artist. She's always just so ready and willing to read and hear. Like sometimes I'll write a scene and be like, "Is this scene good?" and like run in there while she's drawing and read it to her, and she's like, "Yeah, it's good. Now go back and write more. Please tell me what's happening." But but it depends who it's coming from. If it's somebody I trust, then it's easy enough to take that feedback, because you're just going like, oh, like this is really good. Even if I don't agree with it, I'm like, oh, that's something to consider.
Okay.
If it's from reviewers, just somebody reviewing your book on Amazon, on Goodreads, I hope everyone who gives the book a chance likes it. It's obviously not going to happen. It's just sometimes it's not going to be to somebody's taste.
Yep.
And you just have to keep that in mind. Like, sometimes somebody will leave you a 3-star review and go, it's okay, not for me. Cowboys with blue skin are stupid. Nobody's ever left that specific review, but I could see somebody doing it, and you just go, fair enough. If you really have something against blue skin cowboys, then I can't make you like this.
I feel like if you're not making anyone mad, you're probably doing something wrong, because fantasy can be such a polarizing genre where some people will just love certain books. Like for me, the example I always give is the Robin Hobb books, the Assassin's Apprentice.
Yeah.
People rave about that trilogy. They say it's one of the best books they've ever read. I hated that series with every fiber of my being.
Interesting.
And it was written super well. Like I have no criticisms for how it was written.
It just didn't.
But I hated the character, so that's a big problem.
Yeah.
And I just hated where the story ended up. I hated the plot. I hated that I wasted 3 books worth of time.
Oh, no.
And I just kept waiting. I'm like, okay, everyone's saying this is good. So I'd read book 1. I'm like, I didn't think it was that good. But I guess book 2 is where it gets better. And I would read book 2. I'm like, I guess it has a great finale. No, I hated it. So but again, lots of people love it. So I think that if you're not getting some type of emotional reaction, maybe that's more of a problem than getting people who hate it. Because I think it's okay for people to have different tastes, especially in this genre that has so many different types of fantasy.
Absolutely. Yeah. No. And I've gotten emotional reactions, and I know, like, it's funny because you were saying how much you appreciated Casta and Dresco, like, having this friends to enemies adversarial, but they work well together type of relationship. I have some people of a particular demographic that really try to ship them and actually get frustrated that there is no romantic angle by the time they get to the end of the book. And I got I think it was a 3 or 4 star review on Audible where the reviewer was like, just kiss already.
Oh, no.
And I'm just like, okay, like, if that's what you're coming here looking for, then I'm not your man. I'm sorry. But yeah, no, like, as far as dealing with it, like, the brain really does hold on to negative stuff. Take what critical people are saying, look at it, analyze it, but then also don't forget to look at what people are saying about what they like about it. Like, take that to heart too. This is just going to all other authors out there. You work so hard on your book, guys. Like, and you are somebody's favorite author. Just remember,
yes,
you're somebody's favorite author. Like, you're not everybody's favorite author, but you're somebody's favorite author, and that's cool.
And this is something that I love about indie authors. I feel like there's just so much passion from indie authors where I feel like a lot of them write the stories they want to read. And so you get less of the traditional publishing influence where they kind of strip away some of the personality and character of a book and format it to a formula that they know will sell.
Mm-hmm.
So I like that authors are willing to take risks and that we're able to see different things as a result of that. And again, I just feel like it has more passion to it, and I would give that more credibility than a lot of other things in the space. So totally. I agree with you, and I think that's a good point to make to indie authors: is write what you're passionate about, and you'll find your audience somewhere.
They're out there.
They're out there somewhere.
Sometimes you need to make your audience, but they're out there.
Speaking of that, let's talk a little bit about the logistics of being an indie author.
Mm-hmm.
What has been let's talk about the highs and lows. What's been some of the biggest challenges you faced in self-publishing? And what's been some of the greatest rewards that you feel like you've reaped?
Let's see. The greatest challenge, I would say, would be just being able to find and reach my audience on my budget, which is not a publishing house's budget.
Yes.
Yeah. So I can run the ads. I can do the promotions. I also don't have a bottomless pit of money. So I can do that for a certain amount of time. And I'll reach people when I do stuff like that, but not enough at this point for it to be a self-sustaining business model. That's the end.
Gotcha.
Obviously. Yeah. So that's been the biggest challenge, is just making my indie author career profitable, which, I know as creatives, we often don't like to think about stuff like that. Like, I need to drive up my margins so my yield is greater so that I yield a profit and can take it into the next. But unfortunately, we'd have to think about things that way.
Yep.
The only way it's going to work.
When you're faced with that, what do you implement to kind of overcome those things? Because like you said, you're essentially a business owner and a writer.
You got to wear a lot of different hats. Yeah.
A lot of different hats. And the goal, like you said, is to become, every author wants being an author to be their full-time job.
Of course.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But like you said, there's a lot of those logistical challenges that come with it. So have you found anything that works to kind of help you overcome those challenges?
The thing that I've found that works the most, this is going to sound bad, but keep writing. The more books you have out there, the more word of mouth has a chance to spread. The more people can keep reading. If you're writing a series like I am, then if you have more than one book, then people have something else to purchase from you right away if you want to. Yeah. So if you got them with the first book, if you have a second book out, which I will next month, then they have something else to go to. I also have the short story tie-ins, which don't really work as well as the next book in the series is getting people to follow, keep reading. But that's I would say the best way to market your book. And I heard this from an indie author podcast actually, and it stuck with me. But yeah, the best way to market your book is to write your next book.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah,
and I agree, because I think that one of the challenges for indie authors is building trust with an audience. We have a lot of PTSD from George R.R. Martin,
everybody,
from Patrick Rothfuss, and from just a lot of people that just don't give us conclusions. And I feel like if the big people, the big names, can't give us a conclusion, why should we take risks on indie authors and trust that they'll give us a conclusion? So I get that perspective from people. And so seeing more books get published and seeing it get closer to a conclusion, I think does build that trust with an audience. So I think that's great advice. And then what's been some highlights of being an indie author?
The highlight really, it's seeing this story that I've worked on, if you count world building, since the summer of 2016, just that I have really put all of my passion and heart and soul into, and just like seeing it make even just one person, and the fact that several people now happy, like that's been the best thing for me, honestly. Is just like when I see somebody review it on TikTok, for example, and they're just like, oh my god, like I'm Casta, I see myself Casta in this world. It's just like, you know what, like that's cool. That's really cool that I created something that people want to feel like they're a part of.
Yes.
And that I can welcome people to be a part of. Like that's been the best thing for me.
I love talking with authors about their work, because talking about what you're working on is one of the most satisfying things. So when we get together with people, like obviously there's a huge group that likes Brandon Sanderson. There's lots that like Sarah J. Maas, like, and you find a sense of community with those people. So when you talk to the author, it's almost like you get another level of depth to something that you already love. I imagine that's probably satisfying for the authors as well, but I haven't ever really thought about it like that.
I mean, that's why we do what we do, right? Like, like, yeah, to a certain extent, we have these stories, that are trying to bust out and get out of us, and like we feel like we have to write them. But I mean, if that was our only motivation, then we just let them sit on our laptops and read them to ourselves. Like we want to share the joy we get out of writing our stories with others in any way we possibly can.
Absolutely. And I completely agree with that. I think that's such a joy in this community that I found. It's been so much fun to get insights from these books and from authors like you. And just so the audience knows, Brett was actually the very first author to reach out to me to see if I'd review his book back when I had like 13 followers across all my different platforms. So
God bless the TikTok algorithm, man.
So really, I have a special place in my heart for Brett, because he was willing to take a risk on me as a creator. So can you just talk me through a little bit about your outreach strategy as an indie author, reaching out to, different influencers and things like that, and how has that been for you?
Yeah, well, first of all, the feeling is mutual. You coincidentally, I think you were also the first influencer that I reached out to.
Okay, it was meant to be.
You were the first or one of the first. I don't remember, but I had decided, like, okay, I'm going to offer free copies to reviewers, because I think that is a marketing avenue I haven't tried yet, and I just think it could be something that's worth exploring. And then I don't have very many followers on TikTok at this point either. I probably am at or sub 100. And then I just see this dude in a vest who's like, oh, I only review indie fantasy books. And I'm like, no way, really? That's too cool. So yeah, I watched a few of your videos, and I was like, you know what? I think this would be a perfect fit. And I just like your channel. I mean, I've gotten you giving me a few TBR books that I've added in there too, just with other books you've reviewed. I'm like, that sounds really awesome. I got to check that out.
That's what we like to hear.
Yeah. But as far as outreach strategy, I try to just be as genuine as possible, and you got to be able, when you're contacting somebody, to quantify what your book is about without giving them a huge word salad, which I know for some people, and for a while this was me too, it's like your worst nightmare. Like, how do I put my book into one sentence? And I'm like, practice it in the mirror over and over again until it sounds right. That's how you put your book into one sentence. But no, just keep it simple. Don't just send people like a form letter. Don't go on YouTube or TikTok or Instagram and type fantasy reviews and then just copy and paste and send it to 20 people. Actually find someone whose content you like and tell them what you like about it. You don't have to watch all their stuff. Watch 3 or 4 videos and be like, oh, I really liked your review of Mistborn, and my book is a little like Mistborn, so I thought I'd see if you wanted to review it. Content creators are creative people too, and they like to hear what you like about their stuff and why you think your book would be a good fit for their channel.
100%. And I think that you did a great job of that when you were doing your outreach. It did feel very personal, and it just makes you want to engage with that person a little bit more and kind of root for their success. I've noticed that in the indie community as a whole, like we're all kind of rooting for each other.
Oh, 100%.
And trying to build each other up and build up the community. So I really like seeing that as well. I also wanted to give you a chance to talk a little bit about Blood and Soul and anything you want the audience to know about the next book in your Endless Frontier series as a whole.
I'll give a little brief introduction of the first book. The first book is about a treasure hunter and a knight who has renounced his holy order, who go on a quest together for an ancient divine weapon. And the second book, it picks up in a way where we left off, but also some time has passed. And let's see, I'll keep this as spoiler-free as possible for both works. But
I know, it's tough to do it, to navigate that. But
as a result of decisions made or not made from the first book, the world, it's been 2 years, and the world of Irama, Vanda is the nation, Irama's the world, and it's in a very different state. And we're kind of finding ourselves verging on maybe a bit more of a surveillance dystopia. And now we're picking up with our treasure hunting characters where we left off, and Casta, our initial treasure hunter, kind of has to decide now, will she continue to just focus on her career and ignore the state of the world, or find that it is now impossible even for her to ignore?
Yeah, I do like that about, I mean, again, I love the characters that you've built here, and I love that Casta cannot be influenced. She's very much a person that makes up her own mind and does what she's going to do.
Absolutely.
And so when I was reading that introduction to the second book and getting the 2-year, I think you say right off the bat, it's been 2 years or something like that. And that was like almost shocking to me, because I'm like, wait a minute, 2 years? Normally it like picks right up right after the big climax of the first book. You're like, okay, this big thing has happened. Now we get to see where that goes. So getting like, oh, it's been 2 years and nothing has happened. I'm like, what? So that was actually kind of like a fun surprise right out of the gate.
One of my favorite beta readers told me that he was like the first one to read Blood and Soul, and he was like, dude, I thought you were going to start the story with like Dresco having rubbed off on Casta, and now like it's more like Casta has rubbed off on Dresco, and it's weird, but I like it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can get behind that feedback. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
So really excited to, continue diving into your story and getting to know where you're going to take this series. I just think that you've built a great world with these characters. I think it's super unique. For my audience, if you haven't had a chance to read The Endless Frontier, it is so refreshing to get something different that just doesn't really follow a lot of the same tropes and I guess plots that you would see from normal fantasy, but you do get fun things like treasure hunting. You get fun things like searching for ancient artifacts and history and lore. And again, the duo of these characters are great. So if you haven't had a chance to read it, obviously I would recommend it. I think it's a great book, a great series. I just want to also, before we wrap things up, I want to get a chance to see the bookmarks that we've created. Now, something interesting about these bookmarks is your partner was able to sketch together what's going to be the inside cover of the book. Is that correct?
These are going to be the dust jacket flaps.
The dust jacket flaps.
So you remember on the first book, it was the Trugan. So it'll be the two,
yes.
one on each side. Yeah.
Okay. So these will be the dust jacket flaps. And so I got to see a nice early version, an early sketch, and we decided that we would create bookmarks out of the dust jacket flaps. And so I took Sir Dresco, and this is how he turned out, so that everyone can take a little glance at that. And then you took
Malkay Cassius, who you haven't met yet. I focused more on the detail. I got his purple cloak. I got the red eyes in there.
That looks so cool. That's another thing I love about this series. I love that essentially we have basically lightsabers and just this ancient, you have like ancient knights that are wielding lightsabers. So it's so, they're probably my favorite group of people. Like Dresco, despite all of his flaws, is my favorite, probably my favorite character. I like Casper, don't get me wrong. But even with all of his bumbling and his awkwardness and all of that, Dresco just has an endearing place in my heart.
If you're a Dresco fan, then you're gonna really like book 2 as it progresses. He gets a lot of character development in book 2 that I didn't really have the space or story real estate to put in book 1. So
that's what I like to hear. Yeah, as soon as you were introducing that other character, I was like, okay, I'm getting more pumped to read this. Brett, thank you so much. Really appreciate you having a conversation with me today. Again, you were the first person to reach out to me, so I think it feels nice to kind of bring this full circle and be able to have a conversation with you.
This was a lot of fun. I'm curious. I happen to have them nearby. Would you like to see Violet's completed dust jacket flaps so we can feel bad about ourselves?
Let's do it. Let's see what we got. I mean, no, I almost don't want to see it, but I feel like we have to.
Let's see if I can get him in frame there.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, left flap
so
is Dresco, and that's Malkay Cassius, who you'll meet soon enough.
Great job. If your partner's there, that looks awesome. You'll have to let her know that
Violet gave a smile and a wave, which is the kindest gesture known to her people.
Thank you.
Absolutely stunning. Love that.
Thank you so much for having me on and just, giving me a chance to talk about the Endless Frontier series. And and any exposure for an indie author is, just so meaningful. So
I'm happy to do it. Happy to let my audience get to know you a little bit better. Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of Bookmark It featuring Brett Lurie. And don't forget to order your copy of Blood and Soul, which is his second book. So if you haven't read the first, order that one as well. Get both of them and get it from his website using code IFC20 to get 20% off your order. So like we've been talking about in this whole conversation, we want to make sure to support indie authors, support each other. And it's not just about supporting indie authors, it's about supporting great stories. And Brett is really doing that with this series. So really appreciate all the work you've done. And I'm glad I get to reap the benefits of it.
Well, thank you so much, man. And I hope to be able to keep putting out stories like this for a long time. And book 2 comes out in August and book 3 has already been written. So that should be coming out next year, right on schedule.
Thank you so much for watching this episode of Bookmark It. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, don't forget to join the Indie Fantasy Club to learn more about the rising stars of the self-publishing arena. But that's it for now, so we will catch you in the next episode.